The House will come to order. Members, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Arndt, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez, Burnett, Byrd, Bockenfeld, Bradfield, Caraveo, Carver, Catlin, Cutter, Doherty, Duran, Escar, Exum, Volek, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Representative Gray. Representative Gray is excused. Hanks, Herod, Holtorf, Hooten, Representative Hooten. Representative Hooten is excused. Jackson. Representative Jackson. Judah. Kennedy. Kip. Larson. Montine. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean. McLaughlin. Representative McLaughlin is excused. Michael Sinjane. Mullica. Neville. Representative Neville. Representative Neville is excused. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico.
Here.
Ransom. Rich. Ricks.
Here.
Roberts. Sandridge. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. Chitone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Beber. Van Winkle. Representative Van Winkle. Excused. Representative Van Winkle is excused. Weissman. Will. Williams. Representative Williams. Representative Williams is excused. Woodrow. Woog. Young. Representative Young. And Mr. Speaker.
I'll bring it up with you. Thank you. 61 present, 4 excused. We have a quorum. Representative Burnett.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Journal of Monday, March 1st, 2021 be approved and corrected as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's pretty good for a Tuesday. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Weissman.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and members. This is an announcement of the Judiciary Committee calendar for today and the week. Members, we are not meeting on adjournment this morning. You will see that on the calendar. We are meeting this afternoon, as usual, at 1:30 in 107. Today is Representative Terry Carver Day in Judiciary. We will be hearing 1107, 1015, and 1069, of which Rep. Carver is a co-prime sponsor for all three. Reminder, we are not meeting tomorrow due to the schedule adjustments this week for the supplemental package. So see you at 1:30 today.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Health and Insurance is meeting upon adjournment, so I expect you there 15 minutes after we adjourn. We have one bill on the calendar this morning, House Bill 1018, and as another reminder, we are not meeting tomorrow afternoon due to the change up with the supplemental calendar. See you there.
Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services. We will be meeting at 1:30 today in room 112 to hear Bill 1030. See you there.
Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Transportation and Local Government Committee will be meeting today at 1:30 in LSBA to hear House Bill 1118, House Bill 1009, and House Bill 1084. See you this afternoon.
Seeing no further announcements or introductions, the next order of business is third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title. Members, we are doing third reading for the first time. Third read, I guess not technically the first time since we met for those first 3 days, but Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1083.
House Bill 1083 by Representative Benavides, also Senators Priola and Zenziger, concerning the modification on appeal of property valuation set by the County Board of Equalization.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1083 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1083 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. And remotely, Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Okay. Please close the machine. With 47 aye votes and 17 no votes and 1 excuse, House Bill 1083 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1057.
House Bill 1057 by Representatives Roberts and Tipper, also Senators Cook and Rodriguez, concerning a prohibition against the extortion of immigrants for engaging in lawful acts.
Majority Leader Esgar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1083 on third reading and final pass. I'm sorry, 1057. House Bill 1057 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1057 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 64 aye votes, no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1057 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1025.
House Bill 1025 by Representative Arndt, also Senator Janal, concerning a clarification under the Colorado Open Meetings Law of the requirements governing communication by electronic mail that does not relate to the substance of public business.
Majority Leader Esgar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1025 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1025 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Duran. Please close the machine. With 52 ayes, 12 noes, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1025 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1031.
House Bill 1031 by Representatives Doherty and Woog, also Senators Lee and Gardner, concerning continuing jurisdiction to modify family law orders during the pendency of an appeal.
Majority Leader Esgar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1031 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1031 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 64 aye votes, no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1031 is passed. Congratulations to Representative Doherty and Woog on passing their first bill. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1091.
House Bill 1091 by Representatives Doherty and Lynch, also Senator Buckner, concerning sentencing's parity for juveniles convicted as adults following the transfer of charges with juveniles convicted as adults following the direct filing of charges.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1091 on third reading, final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1091 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Please close the machine. 64 aye votes, no votes, and 1 excused. House Bill 1091 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1063.
House Bill 1063 by Representative Lontine, also Senator Rodriguez, concerning additional means by which credit for reinsurance may be allowed to a domestic seating insurer.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1063 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1063 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1063 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, read the title of the House Bill 1022.
House Bill 1022 by Representative Froelich, also Senator Janal, concerning the protection of parties through the enforcement of proper surrogate agreements.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1022 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1022 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Holtorf, Lontine, Tipper, please close the machine. With 43 aye votes, 21 no votes, and 1 excused, House Bill 1022 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. That concludes the third reading calendar. Our next order of business is General Orders, second reading of bills. Representative Valdez A. Valdez.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House now resolve that the Committee of the Whole considers the general order.
You have heard the motion. If there's no objection, Representative Valdez will take the chair. The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed in your bill folders. Floor minutes will be shown on the screen and on your iPads, and bills will be laid over upon the motion of the majority leader. And the court rule is relaxed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1045 until Thursday, March 4th.
Seeing no objection, 1045 will be laid over until March 4th. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1075.
House Bill 1075 by Representative Lontine, also Senator Gonzalez, concerning replacing the term illegal alien with worker without authorization as it relates to public contracts for services.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1075. There is no committee report. House Bill 1075 simply replaces the phrase illegal aliens with worker without authorization in our statutes, and I ask for an aye vote.
All right. Any further discussion on 1075? Representative Bockenfeld.
It's an honor to serve with you, Mr. Chair.
And you?
Folks, on this particular bill, the request is to replace the word illegal alien with a worker without authorization. And I think we need some consistency in Colorado here on how we refer to folks who currently are being referred to as undocumented immigrants. And so I'm going to request, and I'm going to run an amendment here in a second, as soon as I get a hold of them, that illegal alien in this bill be replaced with undocumented immigrant. We need consistency.
Representative Bockenfeld, do you want to move your amendment?
Okay, yeah, could I wrap up a few comments and I'll move the amendment?
Sure.
Okay. We need some consistency so that when people are reading statutes and laws, they know what we're referring to. And so at this point in time, I'd like to move Amendment L-001.
All right. The amendment has been moved and is properly displayed to the amendment.
And again, I get, when you look at the language, illegal alien is pretty rough for language to be used in a statute. An undocumented immigrant is much more consistent than what we call them today. But I want to read you the definition of this person. The definition means an individual who is unable to provide evidence that the individual is authorized by the federal government to work in the United States. So basically, this person is an undocumented immigrant. And we need to call it as such and not be changing the language in each and every bill on how we're referring to this class of people. Worker without authorization is not a good fit for this definition. So I've moved the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Further discussion on L001. Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So those of you who were here last year may remember this bill. And this amendment changes it to exactly what my bill was originally last year. And at the suggestion of members from this side of the aisle and from the city of Denver, I changed it to unauthorized workers. And that was what we passed because that was the preferred terms at the time because this specific statute refers to public contracts and hiring people. And so that is why we settled on that language. When I reintroduced this bill this year after conferring with the city and county of Denver, They requested that I change the language to persons first language, which is why we have workers without authorization. Again, specific to what this statute does. This is not found anywhere else in our statutes. And and we also added a definition of workers without authorization to explain what it is. And so this goes back to what you didn't like before anyway, so I don't understand. Let's just vote no on this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on L001? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L001. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. No! The amendment is lost. To the bill. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1075. All those in favor say aye. Aye! All those opposed, no. The bill is passed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1054.
House Bill 1054 by Representative Jackson, also Senators Gonzalez, concerning a housing assistance exception to the requirements to verify lawful presence in the United States for public benefits.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1054 on second reading and the State Affairs Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was one amendment that clarified that what the funds we're talking about are actually state funds, but we made a tiny, tiny little technical boo-boo. So I move amendment L002 to the State Affairs Committee report.
All right, L002 has been moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I got one.
Thank you, sir. The amendment is probably displayed to the amendment. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, the amendment simply clarifies that the funds that we are referring to are state funds, not federal programs like Section 8 vouchers. And so it does not impact any housing authority properties or any federal monies. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. To the bill. Further Representative Jackson. To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for an aye vote.
All right, any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. Representative Jackson, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So House Bill 1054 would alleviate fear for both tenants and landlords by removing the exception that the state has to verify lawful presence in order for a tenant or a landlord to qualify for state funds and programs. This will keep people in their houses, and it will keep money flowing to those landlords because then they can keep their tenants. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on House Bill 1054, Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Jackson, for bringing this bill forward. Esteemed colleagues, I'm not going to speak against the bill, but what I am going to do, speak to the bill and the unintended consequences that may occur as we try to solve short-term problems in our state. I think we have to be very thoughtful. I think we have to be very careful. I know that there's a COVID-19 environment that is urging us to solve the problems of the state. And for that, I understand and appreciate. But when we do this type of legislation, do we have the foresight and the vision to understand 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years and beyond what this statement will send? I will tell you, if you think there's a housing crisis right now, and many of you know I'm Hispanic, many of you may know I lived in Mexico, many of you may know I've been across that border, many of you may not. But I will tell you that what you do now with this type of legislation and other legislation like this is you will in future time exacerbate a housing problem that you try to remedy. Because the immigrant community, the migrant community, however you want to define that in the English language, they pay attention. And when they see this, I will tell you, and I've been amongst those people, I know how desperate they are. They will come to Colorado maybe just because of this. Now, if that's your intent, fine. But understand once again, the housing problem and these dynamics that you try to solve may only be exacerbated by this type of legislation. So as we legislate in Colorado, let us have vision and understand the future as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time.
All right, Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, there are 26 states that make immigrants eligible for state-funded benefits, so I guess they'll be moving to all 26 states. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the fact that there are 26 states. How many people know how long it takes to get from Juarez to Colorado?
Representative Holtorf, let's
I'll
keep
speak
it
to the bill,
please. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, it takes less than 12 hours. So if I'm an immigrant and I want to find a way to get somewhere, I will promise you, these are smart people. They do the math and they figure it out. They will come to a state, and Colorado is one of those states, and now it's even going to be more of an opportunity when they see this type of legislation. So I understand that there's a lot of states that have adopted this. But speaking to Colorado's problems, I'm not concerned about the other 22 states. I'm selfish as a Colorado legislator. I'll be honest with you. I'm selfish about taking care of our state. Colorado is the most important to me in my job here in the Capitol, representing my House district. So I will tell you, let's not try to look across the nation, which oftentimes we do. Let's focus on Colorado and what's best for Colorado. But understand that my words need to resonate. And I'm not attacking this bill, Mr. Chairman. I'm just telling you there are unintended consequences of what we do, and I'm trying to point some of those out. Thank you, esteemed colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be the last time I speak to this bill.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1054? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1054. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. 1054 is passed. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1124.
House Bill 1124 by Representatives Byrd and Soper, also Senator Lee, concerning an expansion of the ability to conduct business activities electronically.
Representative Byrd and Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1124. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Members, this is a great bill that furthers our efforts to modernize Colorado's corporation code. What the bill does is it allows shareholder meetings to be held virtually and also notices to be given electronically. All of these are opt-out. Not opt-out, opt-in actually, so there's no mandate. If you want to proceed with written notices, you can still do that, but if you'd like to make use of email, now you can do that as well, and also we can hold shareholder meetings remotely and virtually, again, if your bylaws provide for it, and if you comply with protective measures set forth in statute.
Representative Sopel.
Merci, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And thank you, Representative Byrd. This is probably the best bill you've seen so far this year. And just a little bit of background, this didn't come out of COVID-19, but COVID-19 and the pandemic certainly brought this bill forward sooner. It was something that the Bar Association was working on back in 2019 just to modernize our business corporation law, to be able to do things more online, because that's the way the world is heading, and encourage a yes vote.
All right. Any further discussion on House Bill 1124? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1124. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. 1124 is passed.
Good job, my friend. Okay.
Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1102.
House Bill 1102 by Representatives Duran and Soper, also Senator Jaquez Lewis, concerning requirements of pet stores that sell certain pet animals.
Representative Duran,
Just a moment, please.
take your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move House Bill 1102 and the committee report, please.
All right, to the committee report.
Committee of Agriculture.
That's helpful.
Thank you. A little out of practice.
To the ag report.
Do you want to go? Thank you.
Representative Soper.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in House Agriculture Committee, we added one amendment. And what that amendment did was address a lot of the concerns that were raised during the witness testimony phase. We wanted to make sure that pet stores that are currently in existence when this bill becomes law can continue to stay in existence. They can sell their pet store to another pet store. They can move physical locations. It will allow them to continue on as they currently are. And so we addressed that and added this amendment.
Further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Agriculture Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So House Bill 1102 is really about consumer protection, and it's about having clarity when you go to a pet store and you're considering purchasing a puppy or kitten. It's clear the costs, the financing, the licensing, any health concerns of the puppy or kitten that they've had. So it's really about making sure that this information is accessible for the consumer who's going in there to shop, and I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1102 would require all pet stores to have a license and then to disclose the history and health conditions and price of dogs and cats they sell. I just want to remind members that most places in Colorado sell pets, partner with legitimate pet adoption groups. This measure is known as the Pet Store Consumer Protection Act, and it would limit the number of licenses offered, require the disclosure of the price, financing options, fees, history of the dog or cat, health conditions of the animal. Puppy mill industry has certainly been known for their unscrupulous practices, and this bill would provide transparency in much the same way that the auto industry has. And I'd ask for a yes vote.
All right, any further discussion on House Bill 1102? Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I sat on the committee that heard this bill, and I applaud the sponsors. They brought some great amendments to really help this bill, but I couldn't quite cross that finish line. There's one more area that really concerns me, and it has to do with the disclosure.
Representative Pelton, do you want to move the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L006.
All right, hold on one second while I get that up. It is displayed. Please proceed, Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what this amendment does, it keeps the breeder's location and name and stuff from being disclosed on the enclosure. It is still disclosed to the people that want to purchase this pet. But with some of these animal rights groups becoming so militant, I feel this is a safety issue for the breeders that keeps people from coming to their place and disrupting their operations and causing harm. So I would urge a yes vote on this amendment.
All right, further discussion. Representative Holtorf. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question for the esteemed colleague who offered the amendment. Just for clarification, I also served in that committee. One of the things that we were concerned with, if you're a business person, you know that oftentimes your sourcing and your wholesale pricing in a competitive market is your business. And you don't necessarily want to disclose your sourcing and your wholesale pricing. because then competitors might actually go and try to take your supplier or underbid or undermine your business activity from your wholesaler and the wholesale price. So my question is that price of the Dogger Cat? And I understand that the price of the Dogger Cat should be displayed at the retail point of sale. Is that the wholesale price, or is that the retail price as I try to understand the amendment? Thank you.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this amendment actually doesn't reflect my intent, so I will withdraw L006, and the drafter is working on the proper amendment.
All right, Representative Holtorf. We're to the bill.
We're back to the bill, sir?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've heard this bill now twice. A bill last year was proposed, and now a bill this year was additionally proposed. And the first thing I want to do is I want to commend the bill sponsors for working in committee and understanding that the amendments that came forth were very important. And I appreciate their work in adopting these amendments. That is so important to me and the people that I represent. So for that, bill sponsors, I thank you, and I want that to be known. Additionally, I did share these concerns, and I'm going to reiterate some of these concerns to the body because I think they're important. Special interests are very involved in much legislation that gets brought forward. And I always want to remind us that we are here as Colorado legislators, not special interest legislators. So for me, what is most important is the impact on Colorado. And I urge the bill sponsors not to attack small businesses in a COVID-19 environment. That's any business. That's all business, and especially small businesses who are struggling. Now, this is more than a consumer protection bill, but there are elements that are very impactful for consumer protection. And I made that clear in committee. There's 12 to 14 lines that are all about consumer protection. And those lines I embrace without hesitation because I believe in that. Protecting our Colorado consumers is important. But what I don't believe in is restricting small business, attacking small business, or telling small business, we're going to shut you down, and we're coming after you. And these pet stores, ladies and gentlemen, feel like they are in the crosshairs of a sniper rifle by a four-letter institution that I will not name, but there are two letters. One of them is the first letter of my last name, and I will stop right there for fear of being gavelled, that continues to attack these institutions. Now, I will tell you, when we pass this legislation, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. And I mentioned this in committee. The black market that already exists, and we all know what a black market is. Look at the illegal drug trade. The black market in puppy mill and puppy exchanges that predominantly come from puppy mills, if that's what we wanted to address, that's the supply side issue of this matter. And please pay close attention, this is really important, is going to proliferate. If we thought we had 200,000 or more black market trades, which was reported on ABC national news last year, or rather 2019, I will tell you that number is going to grow. So if you think this bill is going to stop that problem, well, I will tell you you're wrong. And the 9, 10, 12, or 14 puppy stores that are out there that feel like they're under attack year after year, I will tell you that it is not going to stop the problem. Because right now I know of stories and I heard testimony of people driving from Oklahoma or California all the way to Colorado, and I'll tell you when they leave. They leave just about nightfall, and they drive. The exchange happens typically early in the morning. There's a puppy in the back of a truck, in a cage in the back seat, maybe one or two or three. They are a specialty breed. They are hauled for hours and hours and hours to their destination. The exchange is made in a parking lot somewhere, usually in the morning. Money is exchanged, a pet is exchanged, most always a dog. And then the two part ways and head back to where they came from. And that is a larger issue in my mind. And it's not going to go away until we talk about addressing the real issue of animal protection at the source. And that is at the beginning where the puppies are bred, they're birthed, and they're raised. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your time.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I stand in opposition of this bill. This bill is a direct attack on a business in my district. I've toured Pet City, and I was utterly shocked about how clean it is, how well the pets are treated. So this confuses me that currently our state is in a economic decline. We have one of the worst unemployment rates in the United States, and we're running a regulation bill. Our businesses are struggling just like Pet City. They're trying to support their staff. They're trying to make payroll, and we're running bills that make it difficult or more difficult for them to run. They probably had the worst year last year in their history, and we're going to make it more difficult on them. So that's what confuses me. I'm not saying aspects of this bill aren't good, aren't positive, but it seems like this industry is totally under fire when there needs to be more focus on the puppy mills. And even if you do like this bill, is the timing right? When we're suffering through, and some people say an economic disaster in our state, and you want to make it more difficult for businesses to thrive. So with that said, I do take this personal. This is attacking a business in my area. And hopefully the people who are running this have toured these places and have been impressed by the treatment of these animals and are fully knowledgeable. Because I think if they did tour, they would see an industry that is highly regulated already and see businesses that are treating their animals in a great manner. And maybe the focus, because every industry needs improvement, would take away from a Pet City. Maybe we can move the focus of those businesses, of those employers, of those job makers, and focus it on the puppy mills. Just something to think about. With that said, I ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How do I lower this here? Thank you. And just to clarify, we are not trying to shut any businesses down that have been struggling through the pandemic. This bill does not close not one puppy store. at all in the state of Colorado. I just want to make that clear so you understand. We are not closing businesses. We are not risking employees' jobs. We are not trying to make it difficult for any pet stores in Colorado. They will remain open. Thank you.
Representative Soper.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And one point that I would like to make on the sake of debate is that a point was raised that pet stores are really suffering. That's not true. As a matter of fact, one thing that we heard during committee testimony was that 2020 was a record financial year for the pet industry in Colorado, and in particular the commercial pet industry. We also heard in committee that 45,000 dogs and cats were imported from outside the state to inside Colorado in 2020. I don't know about you, but 45,000 dogs and cats coming from outside our border into Colorado is quite a number. And I just want to say that, many Coloradans, were looking for a comfort animal to have during the pandemic, and that they were out there. And that's also why it's important to have consumer protection, to have disclosure, because many people buy a dog or a cat. It's a very emotional buy, and it's really important that A, they know the price, they know the financial obligations that might be out there if there are fees or any sort of a loan. So I just want to respond to that point. Thank you.
Representative Sandrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just so I can respond, look at the businesses that have gone under and ask them if regulation isn't there to put them out of business. You can say all day long that you're not there to put them out of business. You're not there for jobs to be lost. But they're going through a pandemic. Our unemployment rate is in the tank because of these regulations, and you want to add more regulations. So let's ask, how about this? We ask these business owners, do they feel, these businesses are on the edge of going under, do they feel more regulations will help them or hurt them? This is basic business 101. So let's not be fooled. This is an attack on the industry, and this will hurt their business. I beg you to find one business owner that says this will help them and increase jobs in their industry. Thank you.
All right, Representative Soper.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do want to respond to that. This is about consumer protection, and it's about ensuring that the consumer has all the knowledge in advance before they purchase a pet. So I just really want to respond to that. Second of all, it's the same types of disclosures that we're asking of the auto industry whenever you're going to buy a car, that you know certain things up front. Same that we're asking for dogs and cats.
All right, Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we're going to run at this again. I've got a new amendment. I move amendment L007 ask to be displayed.
L007 has been moved. Stand by. We'll get it displayed. And proceed, Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment closely mirrors, almost exact to the last one. What it does is strikes the language after cat. It strikes that language to take out the breeder's name, location, and I just think this is a safety issue for these breeders. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on L007. Representative Catlin.
It's an honor to serve with you, Mr. Chairman.
And you. I apologize, Representative Catlin.
We were in committee. Some of the testimony that we had heard did bring up the fact that some of the breeders have had visitations from potential customers or people that were saying they were potential customers, and sheriffs had to be called. People lost all of their inventory because now they knew where those animals were. And I think what we're trying to do with this amendment is to simply give some safety to the folks that are doing things right. You know, animal rights and people loving animals is serious, and I appreciate it. I've had a number of dogs that I wouldn't trade for anything. But the people that are doing this for a living and that are doing it right are really up front. And if the individual that's wanting to buy an animal can be told who that breeder is at that time, documented to him, then they can check on those kind of things. Go see it. Go see the breeder, those kind of things. But to just publish it to the public, I'm afraid, will cause more trouble for people that are trying to do well, because we know the people that are running an under-the-radar business are not advertising, so none of the people can go take a look at those conditions. I think we are focusing on the wrong side of the transaction by trying to disclose more than needed to be disclosed prior to the sale. At the time an individual says, I'm interested in that dog, I want to know where he came from, then that should be given to that potential buyer. That's what this amendment does. I would ask for a yes vote this morning on this amendment.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could just clarify something here. When you go purchase a car, purchase a home, all the information, the sticker price is on that vehicle. We are not asking for anything more, anything less. All the information we are asking for is currently available and has been for decades through PACFA. License number, breeder information. So we're not asking anyone to disclose anything that hasn't already been disclosed for decades. We're asking for that information to be put on the cage so that the consumer has access to it before they fall in love with a puppy, a kitten, and they go up to the register. Then normally that's where they give them the information after the animal's been paid for. So we're not asking for anything more whatsoever, and I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Duran. And this information will still be available. It just won't be openly displayed on the enclosure. It will be given to the buyer, so they have all the information, but just having it out there for anybody walking by can take that information and go do with whatever. It really disturbs me.
Further discussion, Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also am in support of this amendment. And I wanted to point out to those of us here that weren't in committee, there was some very impactful testimony about people that raise these dogs that actually had their homes, and most of these are rural. They're in the country. It's part of their diversified portfolio of businesses that keep them alive in the country. Because in the country we know we all do more than one thing to support ourselves out there out of necessity. But some of the testimony very clearly said that people came to these locations and actually stole their inventory.
Representative Holtorf, if I could, please keep you to the amendment.
Okay, to the amendment about pricing and the information about the sourcing of the puppy. So let me explain it a different way, Mr. Chair, so you can follow me on this. If people know that information of where, how much, and what, and activist groups want to go out, or maybe felonious groups want to go out, or people who want to take from others their property, let's be clear. In testimony, it was stated that this happened. Some people had their inventory stolen. Now, if you were a small business and you were a wholesaler or supplier, and people found out in your particular business, based on whatever that product was, that now they would come and steal all your inventory and jeopardize your livelihood, would you not want that type of protection? Well, I would argue everybody does. You don't want your livelihood threatened. So I am talking to the amendment, ladies and gentlemen, because you're disclosing all right there at the retail level. And for some of these particular breeds that are very unique and very hard to get a hold of, there is a significant demand for those. When we hear testimony about people being assaulted, people being threatened because they demand a sale at their location, at the wholesale level, they come to that location and demand that transfer. That is also a very dangerous situation. So we want to talk about protections. This amendment here, Mr. Chair and colleagues, does support the protection of those suppliers to some degree. And I think it's very clear that when you do buy that puppy, you're told all the information about it now, particularly with the other language in this bill, as I understand it. But to have that displayed so now, and most impactfully, activist groups can come and harass you, harangue you, and cause you harm. And that does happen. It has happened and will continue to happen. This does not protect the other side of the equation. It only puts them in greater harm, as our ranking member has pointed out. Thank you.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make this clear. There has been no reporting or evidence that that has been the case and anybody has been vandalized or anything stolen. And for your information, that many states already require this disclosure. So this is nothing new. This disclosure is nothing new, and I ask for a no vote.
All right, further discussion on L007. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L007. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. The amendment is lost to the bill. Any further discussion? Representative Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
And an honor to serve with you as well.
So we heard this bill last year in committee, and it was killed in our committee. This year, I think it would have been the same. However, I applaud the bill sponsors for those amendments to make this bill better. I think it's, in my opinion, is a bad bill that you can't make better. But, and I'd like to give a shout out to all those people that do it right, for raising puppies and providing our companions. And so, because I know that's the part of it. I mean, they do a good job, and I want to give them a shout out and applaud them. I see this bill as kind of an overreach by special interest groups. I see it as a real interference and disruption to our free market system of business. And if it really did something, if I felt it really did something for the welfare of animals, I would support it. I just don't think it's, I understand what we're trying to cure. I just don't think this bill does it. So I was a no in committee, and I'll continue to be a no in this bill. But with all due respect, thank you for bringing the bill for me.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, members, I am here to speak not only for the consumer, which this bill gives information to, but also for the puppies and kittens. This model of high-volume puppy production for profit inherently drives unacceptable outcomes in health, safety, and the peaceful existence of the animal, often to the unsuspecting consumer. Animals that are destined to be household pets coming from facilities of large-scale production are at a deficit the moment they're conceived. Breeding dogs under condition of confinement leads to long-term stress in those animals. Breeders that own 50 to 100 or more dogs, whose goal is to get as many puppies to market as fast as possible, can't possibly be focusing on the needs of that animal, improving genetics in a breed or aiming to meet breed standards. They don't have the capacity to provide the essential nurturing, the critical socializing that these breeding dogs and their litters need. This in turn leads to behavioral problems in these puppies that often don't show up for months or years long after a family has fallen in love and taken that puppy home. In all my years in veterinary medicine, when dogs were brought to me who were bought from a pet store, almost always those people fell in love with that animal instantly and made an emotional decision. They didn't go through any kind of thoughtful consideration before they purchased that dog. People buy on impulse, and that is not a logical way to enter into a 10 to 15 year commitment to a pet's life. It's not fair to the animal, and it's not fair to the consumer. This bill's effort to increase transparency and allow easier access to important information is helpful in the decision-making process. When you are investing in a puppy or kitten, it'll help open up more conversation with the seller. It will give the purchasers more to consider before they buy, and it will better prepare the consumer for the commitment both financially and emotionally that they are entering into. There are 14 stores left in our state. This affects about 9 who routinely sell puppies and kittens. It's clear to me that in the almost 30 years that I've lived in the state, that the consumers of our state and the market are moving away from this model. As a small business owner myself, I appreciate that we are protecting the stores that currently exist with this bill and allowing no new dealer licensing, and to help better educate consumers in their decision-making process. I urge a yes vote on this bill.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Representative Holtorf was first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, esteemed colleagues. I will tell you that I have a lot more faith in our consumers. We talk about consumers just running out in impulse shopping here, there, and everywhere. I will tell you, yes, there's an emotional attachment to buying puppies, but I will tell you our consumers are smarter than that, particularly the adults consumers. And I think most of them, with a few exceptions, do think about the responsibility, the impact, and the sourcing. So I'm not going to sign up for that. And I think we should be very careful when we disparage consumers and say they're all impulse purchasers when they're not. The purchase of an animal is in most cases a very thoughtful decision by a family for a specific need. I will also tell you that we throw everybody in one barrel and call them a bad apple. That's what we do with this bill. They're all bad. The apples are all rotten. Those puppy mills and those pet breeders are all rotten to the core. Well, I will tell you that's not true either, because it's the same consideration. There are many breeders in my district, and yes, they do it for profit to make a living, and that's not against the law in a free enterprise system. That's not illegal, nor should it ever be. I will tell you that they are responsible. Most of them are responsible breeders who are taking care of their animals. And from the time those puppies are born, and they're with their siblings and their mother, and then they're weaned, and I know as much about weaning animals as probably anybody in this chamber, then they are in fact transferred, and they go to the next chapter of their life, which is hopefully with a good home. But I will tell you that I'm not going to be disingenuous to everybody in this chamber, nor to the public, as I talk to that camera. Last year, this bill started out shutting down puppy stores. This bill came back with the same attack on puppy stores by an activist organization that we all know. A four-letter institution that doesn't want private pet stores in business, obviously, because they're the problem. Well, I beg to differ. I am still against this bill, will continue to be against this bill, when you attack private business sectors and threaten to shut them down. The only reason puppy stores can continue to be in business, ladies and gentlemen, and let's be honest, let's be really honest with ourselves today, okay, is because we had impactful amendments that changed the trajectory of this bill that started out a very bad bill and continues to be not a good bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, esteemed colleagues.
All right, Representative Pelton, and then
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I view this bill as a camel's nose under the tent. First, let's really start regulating these pet stores on just how they can sell dogs and cats. We're going to see a bill that's in the Senate right now. We will see it later that has to do with traveling animal shows. Right now, rodeos, 4-H, and that is excluded. But where does it end, people? Rural Colorado is tired of this building eating away at the different industries that affect us. So I ask everybody for a no vote on this bill. And also, we heard testimony from the department. They believe they can use regulation to help address this situation. In my opinion, that's the way to do it. Let's keep some of this kind of stuff out of statute. Let the departments do their work. So I urge a no vote.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want everyone to be clear that this does in no way affect the hundreds of thousands of breeders in our state that are doing it right, where consumers over the past several decades have more and more moved to that model, because that's where when they do their research and they are investigating these breeders, they're able to buy the breed of their choice. And we champion those breeders. We are absolutely for those. So this does not shut down those people that are breeding dogs in the right way. And I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Representative Sandrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think some of the comments here are telling. When you restrict a business, restrict the licenses, and say the industry's moving away from this model, it's because you're restricting it. First saying the government doesn't decide on a business model. The free market decides on a business model. The consumers decide where they want to purchase their product. But the government manipulating licenses and adding restrictions is anti-free market and anti-business. So I invite the the prime sponsors of this bill to come down to my district, tour one of the pet cities, and understand the excessive regulation that they're already suffering, the burden that they have to suffer, and also experience the cleanliness. It's an impressive place. So I invite, again, the prime sponsors, I invite the majority leader to come down and tour, and you will be impressed. And you will want to actually run bills to actually help these businesses, then constrain them. With that said, again, I ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I continue to rise in opposition of this, and I will tell you, as a small business operator, the comments that were made earlier are not true. And I'm going to explain why here. When you have a product to sell, and something or somebody tries to restrict your retail sales opportunities for that market, either for you or anybody else in that sector, then you are affecting the free enterprise system, and you are in fact restricting the ability for that small business to have the opportunity to produce and sell what they intend to produce and sell. Because it has a cascading effect in anything. So that just is not true. Now I will tell you, there are government models in our society and our history that want to control everything and want to restrict business and pick the winners and losers and who can do business and who cannot, who can have a license and who cannot. There are those models in our society, and socialism is at the top of that model. Thank you.
All right, further discussion on 1102? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1102. All those in favor say aye. Oh, Representative Van Winkle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. I thought you said on the amendment, not the bill. But I just have a couple questions here because helping out a friend here. But I do know pet store owner does not include animal shelters, animal rescues, cat breeders, and dog breeders. But to me, I'm wondering how that definition came about, because to me, if there is a breeder, they naturally would eventually be moving towards the sale of the animal that they are breeding. So help me out with that a bit.
Representative Soper.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Van Winkle. So this bill doesn't impact breeders aside from disclosing who they are. So a breeder can still sell directly, which is a very popular business model in Colorado. Coloradans love being able to buy directly from breeders. And this bill does not touch that business model or their licensing at all.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that answer. I do very much appreciate that helps. I do wish we'd focus more so on the emergency at hand before our people and not on bills such as this, but I appreciate the answer, and nothing more for me. Thank you.
All right, further discussion on House Bill 1102? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1102. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. 1102 is passed. Madam Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee rise and report.
Rise and report. You have heard the motion. The committee will rise and report. The House will come back to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it as under consideration the following attached bills being second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1054 is amended, 1075, 1102 is amended, 1124 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1045 laid over until March 4th, 2021 and retain their place on the calendar.
Representative Valdez. You have heard Representative Valdez. Thank you. There are amendments at the desk. We're going to wait just 1 second. Mr. Gregorio, will you please read the Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole?
Representative Holtorf moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting House Bill 21-1102 to show that House Bill 21-1102 as amended lost.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the amendment to the Committee of the Whole, reference the Holtorf Amendment.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf. That has been moved and properly displayed. Is there any further discussion on the Holtorf Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole? Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote on the Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report?
Yes.
Representative Pico votes yes. Please close the machine. With 24 aye votes, 39 no votes, and 2 excused, the Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report is lost. Okay, we're back to the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Let me just make sure I make the right motion. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Pico, how do you vote on the report of the Committee of the Whole?
No.
Representative Pico votes no. Representative Soper, great. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 23 no votes, and 2 excused, the report is adopted. That brings us back to any further announcements or introductions. Seeing none, I think we should actually do a little bit of work before we go read some reports of committees of reference. So with that, Mr. Gregorio, reports of committees of reference.
Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 041 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 42 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 43 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable bill recommendation. Senate Bill 44 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 45 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 46 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 47 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 48 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 49 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 50 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 51 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 52 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 53 be amended as follows and be so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 54 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 55 be amended as follows and be so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 83 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 109 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 110 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 111 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 112 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 113 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Printing report.
The Chief Clerk
Printing
reports.
report will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker.
Message from the Senate will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Reviser.
We hear
Message from
transmit.
the Reviser will be printed in the Journal. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until later. He asked for announcements. Do you have announcements and introductions? Okay.
Okay, well, I did ask, but we're back to it. Representative Geithner, Mr. Assistant Minority Leader. And Representative Sandridge. No? Separate. What? And Representative Carver. And Representative Williams.
So thank you,
This is
Mr. Speaker.
blasphemy.
Members, I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge some special guests that we have out of El Paso. Here with us today, we do have the Sunrise Republican Women, a very active group within El Paso County, and I just wanted to say hi to them and thank them and extend them the courtesy for coming all the way from El Paso and joining us here on the floor today to see how we do the people's work. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being here. Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think Representative Bradfield stepped away, so I'm sure she would like to thank you as well for being here. And also, the associate or junior member, Sophia Sandridge, would like to thank you for being here as well. Thank you.
One more time. Thanks so much for being here. With that, Madam Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's try this one more time. I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.